What's up, dogs? It's Nyctopluvo, back again with a recent games pickup with Drew again this time. And it's been a moment since Drew's been around. He's been at college, and both our birthdays went on since then. So when Drew came back, we kind of just had, not really like a party, but we exchanged gifts. And Drew bought me Monster Hunter, and he also got himself Monster Hunter.
I did, for my own birthday. It was a birthday present to myself.
And I mean, Monster Hunter's just kind of like, you know, you hunt monsters. It's a little bit hard to get into. I'm not fully in it yet, but once I get over the learning curve, I'm sure it'll be cool, right?
I've been a big fan of Monster Hunter for going on like 5 years now, and I can say this one definitely holds up. It's excellent. I
heard it's the easiest one to get into, but it's still pretty hard.
Yeah, it's not easier than the other games, it's just the most accessible, I would say.
Alright.
On the topic of birthday gifts, Michael bought me Game & Wario for the Wii U, rather.
Yep.
We just, as I'm sure you guys have figured out, we very much like WarioWare here on Nyctopluvo.
Yep.
And this is just one of the ones I didn't own. I really wanted it. I was very thankful.
That one's a lot different too than the other WarioWare games. There's like a bunch of, it's more like minigame based and not so much like micro games. And you know, there's a bunch of different fun modes, and they're like one of the ones we played that we really liked is there's like this one where you're this character hidden in like the room, you're like stealing fruit, and then everybody else has to figure out who you are. There's like a Pictionary one that's really fun. And then there's also there's a couple other multiplayer ones, but then you really did like the skiing one.
Yeah, the skiing one.
I remember I talked about that one in the video where I picked up Game & Wario and how I was confused about it. But it's a really fun minigame.
Jimmy's one of my favorite characters, so it's always nice to have a good Jimmy minigame.
And Drew also got me these two really cool amiibos for Animal Crossing. He's got Tom Nook and Mr. Rossetti. I mean, I don't really have the game, Amiibo Festival, but I mean, they're still really cool to have, and they're really well designed, as you can see there.
Staying right on the topic of birthday presents, so there's a arcade bar somewhat near us that we go to, and I went there with my family, and I played a game. It was called Sunset Riders. I had never heard of it. It's an old Konami arcade game, and I was very taken with it. I very much liked it. And shortly afterwards, for my birthday, my mom mailed me, it's not an original, it's a reproduction, but it's a reproduction of the SNES port of Sunset Riders. And this game has never been re-released after it was released on the Genesis and the SNES. It's only available on those consoles. The only other way you can get it is through emulation. So it's a very nice repro. It's a repro, but she looked into the original, and it's rare. It's on the expensive side. I think it's around $100. So for now, the repro is exactly what I need. It plays the game, and we've been playing it. It plays like Metal Slug. It's the closest. It doesn't feel like Metal Slug, but it's the most similar to it is Metal Slug. But yeah, it's a good time. Run and gun, kind of neat upgrade system. All that. Cowboys.
It's pretty fun.
What else could you want? Ooh. Let's see. I also, just quickly get it out of the way, I bought myself Starfox Garden on Michael's recommendation. It is a fantastic game, from what I've played. Not a lot. I very much enjoyed it, though. It's a really neat concept. But yeah, I saw it for $3. It was sealed.
I mean, it's a really cheap game, too, and it's like really fun. It's like it's like a tower defense, but you use the gamepad to like look through certain cameras and like, you know, fire at enemies, and it's generally really fun. So next up, we both got Wave Race on the N64, and I will say, I've talked about Wave Race, you know, a couple times on this channel, the GameCube version that is, and I will say, and Wave Race seems like the kind of game where you have to like play it to get better and better at it. It's not really, you can just, you know, just jump in and be good at it, but this one just seems a lot easier to like, you know, get into it than the GameCube version, and it's really fun.
I have a couple of Game Boy games that I'd like to shoot off really quickly that I don't have a ton to say about, but so this one here is Fortress. This was a gift from my roommate. He went to get a haircut, and I said, bring me back Game Boy games, and he brought me back Fortress, which I had never heard of. I played it for the first time today. It plays like Tetris. It very much is inspired by Tetris, and when you're putting down, they're not all Tetraminos, but they're Tetramino-like. They're very much, most of them are Tetris shapes specifically. But
like they kind of just build up your base.
Yeah, and when you put them down, they build your
survive.
base. Yep, and you're trying to fight against another person who's also building your base. This one is a funny story. This is Dragon Ball Z, the trading card game. I bought this because I already owned Legacy of Goku, and I was going to buy Legacy of Goku 2, and I was in a hurry at the store, and I thought this was Legacy of Goku 2, but it's not. It's the trading card game, and I was trying to get out of there quickly. I wanted to get something, so I picked this up. Not what I thought it was. It looks exactly like Legacy of Goku. It's Trunks on there, so I mean, I don't know why he'd be on Legacy of Goku, but it was a lapse in judgment. Probably never play it. Don't know what it's like. I'll let you know. This one was an impulse buy. I found it. I was shuffling through the bin of games no one wanted. This is Shrek Super Slam for the Game Boy Advance. And as kids, Michael and I used to play the original, or well, I guess this is the original Shrek Super Slam, but we used to play it on the GameCube. This is not a very faithful or even good port of that game. I would say gameplay-wise, not this one's lacking a bit. There should be footage, but it leaves some to be desired. But where it doesn't leave anything to be desired is in the soundtrack. The soundtrack is
kick-ass.
It's amazing. It's honestly, it blew my mind when I heard it. I did not know what was happening. It's way darker than you'd expect, and it's really sophisticated.
It's way better than it should be.
I got the impression the guy who composed for this had been hoping to compose for video games his entire life, and then someone was like, I have a job for you, and he got super excited, and then they found out it was Shrek Super Slam on the Game Boy, but he didn't let him get that he didn't let that get him down. He was doing his best. He was composing for video games. So that's that. I have some more Game Boy games. This one is really interesting. Again, another impulse buy that I saw, and I was like, how the heck? Something about Game Boy ports recently, because we haven't been getting a lot of handheld ports of console titles. This was an arcade title. This is Crazy Taxi. It's called Crazy Taxi Catch a Ride. I expected this to play a lot like the isometric Tony Hawk games, the Pro Skater games that were ported to Game Boy. No, it's nothing like that. It is full 3D is not exactly right, because it looks like everything uses sprites, but it's in a 3D landscape, and it's not an exact conversion of the city. There are different cities. There are multiple cities in this game, actually. But it's faithful to the control and gameplay style of the original. I think it suffers for it, because frame rate's really bad, and the game doesn't control very well. But it's really interesting to see that they had such an ambitious port of Crazy Taxi for the Game Boy Advance. And these next two, it's no surprise to anyone who knows me, but I am a huge fan of the Mario sports games, especially tennis and golf. And the Game Boy ports, Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance ports of the tennis and golf series they're Camelot RPGs. And they're just really interesting. Nothing like you'd ever expect someone to make a sports game, especially a Mario sports game. Mario doesn't appear in these games until the very end.
Yeah, you don't even play as Mario either, or any of the other Nintendo characters. It's different.
They're very faithful to the source material. They play exactly like Mario Tennis this one plays exactly like Mario Tennis on the N64. This one plays exactly like Mario Golf on the GameCube. They play super well. They're very good. Pick these up if you ever see them. I love these games.
So next up for me is Smurf Racers. This is the game I used to have as a kid. And I kind of forgot about it, and I just saw it, and I was like, yeah, I'll pick this up for I think it was maybe $4 or $5. And surprisingly, this game isn't bad. I played through it, and I expected for it to not be as good as I remember, and it holds up. It's still really good. I mean, it's no Mario Kart, but I mean it still stands its own, and yeah, it's really sweet.
You got quite the collection of kart racers now, huh?
Yeah, maybe I'll do a video about kart racers.
Maybe, yeah, Mario Kart. This one just about polishes off my handhelds. We were just talking about WarioWare. I found WarioWare d.i.y. recently. It was not very expensive, which I don't know anything about this one. I know it's going to be along the lines, it's for the DS. So it's going to be along the lines of, what's that game called? Drawn to Life?
Yeah.
It's going to be along the lines of Drawn to Life, where you create your own stuff. It says, make it yourself, play it yourself, do it yourself. So I think you're going to be designing a lot of the stuff yourself. I don't know how the micro games are going to play. I see screenshots from Starfox, stuff like that. So it should be standard micro games, I hope. I don't know. I really enjoy the regular WarioWare just feel, its formula. So I don't know how much this is going to mix it up, but it's complete in box, very nice. I enjoy it. I figured I'd give it a gamble. Should I go again?
Yep.
Okay.
You have a lot more games than I do. I did one video without you.
Yeah, so I've had double the time. This one is Tiny Toons Adventures, Buster Busts Loose. So the story with this one is that I saw it at a GDQ. I saw a speedrun of this, a live stream speedrun of this from GDQ. And I fell in love with the art style. I watched Tiny Toons growing up. My dad was a fan. And I had a different Tiny Toons game for the NES. I don't remember what it was called, but I played that a lot growing up. So when I saw this, I really wanted to try it out. And the art style holds up really well. We were just talking about that.
Yeah, we were talking about how SNES games just look really good.
They held up super well.
Especially this game specifically we were looking at.
Very strong, very authentic.
I mean,
material.
you had Sunset Riders earlier, and I mean that doesn't look as good as this, but it still has like a feel to it that just feels really good.
Especially considering they already had sprites that they just had to downgrade. But yeah, it was a fun time. It's really interesting. It's not just your standard, because a lot of the tie-in stuff, you got a lot of the really bog standard platformers. This one's really fast-paced, and you can run up walls, and there's mechanics. There's systems and stuff in the game that aren't just your bare minimum licensed port, So it's got some substance to it. So I'm looking forward to actually playing through this one.
So this game I just picked up because it sounded completely silly and weird, and I was like, it's like $2, so why not? It's called a Rat Attack. And so basically in this game, you play in like these small little levels as a cat, and you kind of just like chase these mice around and like make sure that, I'm not sure what the exact objective is, but it seems like you're trying to make sure they don't destroy the house. But like at one point, I just kind of like let them do their thing to, see what would happen, and like after a certain point they just stopped trying to break things and just started going straight for me. And I mean, it's not like a real like interesting game, but I mean it's fun for like 2 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe at the very most. I just bought it because it seemed really weird and it was cheap.
It's something to put on a shelf, like Whacked. It's gonna get questions.
It's gonna get questions for sure. Like, what is, like, I was looking at that and I was like, what is Rat Attack?
Your next one is definitely.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that after you do a couple.
So just real quick, these two aren't collections per se. They're just stuff I saw and pre-ordered immediately. This one, I'm a big fan of Bayonetta, and this was Bayonetta 2, 1 and 2 on the Switch. The cartridge only has 2 on it, you have to download one. But I'm been a big fan of Bayonetta since the first one. I very much enjoy the games. I saw they were coming to mobile on Switch port, and I thought it was a no-brainer, so I pre-ordered it, and I very much enjoyed it. I didn't play through 1 yet on the Switch. From what I understand, it's the best port other than the PC port, best performing, lowest frame rate, or highest frame rate consistently.
I hope it's not the lowest.
That would be unfortunate, yeah. But this one's really neat. It has the Bayonetta 2 cover art and the Bayonetta 2 cover art back, but on the inside there's reversible, and you can do Bayonetta 2, or you can do the Bayonetta 1 cover art back and all that. So it's kind of neat. It appeals to the fans. You got your code in here as well. So I already redeemed it. Not too worried about it. This one is, there's a little story about this one actually. So Demi, who we've mentioned on the channel plenty of times, her and I have, especially recently, we've been playing a lot of brawlers. We just really enjoy 2D beat-em-ups, and we were looking for something to play that were multiplayer, and I think my exact words to her were, what's that one with the boobs? The boob game. do you remember what the boob game is? And she's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. She knew exactly what I was talking about with it. But this is Dragon's Crown Pro. This just recently came out. I believe it's exclusive to the PS4. Dragon's Crown came out a long time ago, for the PS3. I believe it was only on PS3, and I believe it was only downloadable. So I think this is the first physical release of Dragon's Crown. But it's a nice steelbook. I got the special edition because I think it came out to exactly the same price on Amazon. But it has really beautiful art throughout the game. Very sexualized characters, but after about like 10-ish hours of playing, you really don't even notice it anymore. So it gets kind of annoying, but it's just got really beautiful artwork on the inside of the case. I'm happy with this deal. It comes with cards with all the different skills, and I'm happy with this purchase. I very much enjoyed it. Demi and I have put, like 20 hours in it already, and I just got it like a week ago, and yeah, it's a blast.
Speaking of Demi, we were both looking at this game going, what in the world is this? And then I was like, it's cheap, I'm gonna buy it and find out what it's about. And it's this really colorful looking game called Creatures on the PlayStation 1. And basically the premise of this game is that like there's these little creatures you raise and you feed them and you play with them and you like raise them. And like I guess the objective is to just get a bunch of creatures, living. I didn't get very far in it. Like I'm sure like once you get the ball rolling it's like gonna be a really great time, but like as far as I'm in it, I got like 2 characters to start with, and I got as far as having them make a child, and I was like reading up a lot on it because like it's a little bit difficult to understand because you gotta kind of like it's kind of like you feed them and all that, but you gotta like discipline them and like give them gratitude for when they do good things. Like you give them food and they eat it, and then you give them gratitude so they know, hey, you're supposed to eat. And then like you play as like this little sprite, and like you can have them do tasks, and you can tell them to come here, and if they don't come here you can go over there and just like hit them and discipline them to try to get them like it's kind of like a balance of getting them to like appreciate you but not beat them up so much where they like resent you.
Discipline.
Yeah.
So it's like a more in-depth Tamagotchi type deal.
Yeah.
Along those lines.
And I think there's like a bunch of tasks you can have them do around like the little map, and yeah, I'm not like too far in it, but it seems like it's a great game overall.
I like these blurbs here. There's creatures. Raise me, feed me, love me.
Don't beat them up too much, they'll hate you.
He has a 90s kid haircut that makes me uncomfortable.
I just think it's really weird because this game is like comparatively like, here's 2 other PS1 games. They look, pretty bland. And this one's just a little orange and yellow, and it just pops and it's like screaming at you. Like you can't not notice it.
I hope it's not screaming. That would be terrifying. These 3 are, well, no, okay. So, we were our most recent trip to one of our game stores that we frequent, that's the word. Michael and I found 2 Lightguns for the PS1, brand new in box. This one's from 1998 and this one's from 2000. They are the same gun, just this one's a newer model of this one.
Yep.
This one's really nice because it has GunCon support. This one does not have GunCon support without an attachment, so this can play basically anything on the PS1, and going into the PS2, it can play a lot of the PS2 games as well. This one can play anything that is not made by Namco. So, don't buy the heater if you want Namco shooter games, light gun games, which is exactly what I have. In both of our local game stores that I went to, I could only find 1 light gun game for the PS2 or the PS1 that would be compatible with these, and that was Time Crisis 2, which is an excellent game. I love Time Crisis 2. Not an excellent case. It is.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty.
However, in excellent condition, and it has everything that came with the original game. it's just a bad case. I don't have much else to say about that, but the sniper worked like a dream with this on time on the second game, on the PS2 I read. So I have high hopes for the heater whenever I get. I think Area 51 is a nice light gun game. There's stuff. There's stuff. I just have to find it.
Yep.
And I also have 2 more PS2 games that I picked up. One, you've seen probably many times, I'd assume, on Nyctopluvo.
Well, you've seen it at least once.
At
we
least
talked
once.
about the cover because it's awesome.
Super Bust-A-Move. We just happened to run into it again on our travels, as we do very frequently. And I figured this was the time. This was when I'll pick it up. So
it's a really decent puzzle game. I mean, the music's not great. The thing I do like is there's random ass baby noises just randomly. It'll be playing and the music just goes.
Babies are my favorite theme. Yeah. But yeah,
I don't know.
it looks like it's got a lot of style, and I value that, especially in puzzle games. It's like
Also, I do like when you lose, like you have like a little team of characters. One person's aiming, one person's loading the machine, or somebody's handing somebody like the balls, the bubbles or whatever. The other person's loading it, and then you're like aiming it. And basically, when you lose, like the other 2 characters, like you're the one that aims. The 2 characters that load it for you just like start fighting each other in a scrap bubble. It's really cute.
And it's got Bubble Bobble characters, so legacy stuff, and yeah, from what I understand, this is a very good adaptation of Bust-A-Move, which there are tons. So this is one of the ones to look out for. And finally for the PS2, finally for the PS2, I have Kingdom Hearts 2, and it's in a shiny foil case, which is super annoying on camera. I see now, but this is the foil case to match the case I have for my Kingdom Hearts 1 that I got. And this was relatively cheap. They have been recently. They were really expensive a while ago, but they dropped down. And something I noticed on my Kingdom Hearts 1 copy is that I got the nice, like, limited edition foil case, but on the inside it was a greatest hits disc. It had the red banner on the disc. Thankfully that did not happen with this one, so it all matches here. I'll have to see about the other one.
And next up is a game both me and Drew got. Drew really likes this game. I haven't gotten too into it yet, but it's called Speed Racer.
Speed Racer.
And it's for the most part it's a normal racer, except for the one major mechanic, Car-Fu.
Car-Fu.
Where you can just literally suplex other cars.
It's like a wrestling match, but with cars on high speed. I mean, it's everything from Speed Racer, so it's the super anime, super fast racing action, and also you can do like wrestling moves on other cars.
Just suplex other cars off the road.
You're completely allowed to just kill other drivers, which is awesome.
It's pretty brutal.
So the reason I bought it, I already owned this game. The reason I bought it is because I found, again with Kingdom Hearts, I found a foil case, which I didn't know existed. I don't think anyone knew existed. People probably still don't. But, so yeah, I found a foil case, and it was $3. Like, you can get this game anywhere. We found it 3 times in the past 3 trips that we went to any game store. And it's super cheap, and everyone has a Wii. It has very smooth motion controls, and I don't really have a lot to complain about it. One thing I found was really interesting, they used promotional art from the movie, I believe. These are like the live action characters from the movie, but absolutely nothing about the game that I can tell is tie-in with the movie. So I think it was just released at the same time as the movie to help push sales in case the movie did well, which it did not. So I don't think it did it any favors. But yeah. It has art from the movie. Everything else seems like it seems new. I don't think it's based on like the comics or the mangas or anything.
Nope.
I have no idea. But yeah. Very good. Highly recommend. I actually have my other copy of it right here. I don't know why I brought it. These 2 are quick. My friend Tom, he hasn't gotten me anything for my birthday, which I wouldn't have been concerned about, but he's concerned about. but he wanted to give me something to hold me over, and he found these, which we've seen before. I think you own a couple. Yeah, the Thomas was a lone one, right?
Yeah.
There are steelbooks for indie games that was it Indie Box? Yeah, Indie Box releases the collector's edition of indie games.
They're really nice.
He found them for super cheap. They come with the soundtracks, they Steam codes, and they have a DRM-free copy on disc.
Yeah, I think that's nice. They come with like the game on disc, but they also give you a Steam code.
Yeah, there's a manual, Steam code, pamphlet for their web service or their service, and then they have a physical soundtrack. And this was the deluxe version, so it came with the soundtrack on Steam as well, which is the same for Awesomenauts here, and the game on the disc for DRM free, which wouldn't help for Awesomenauts because it's online only. But this one's Punch Club, which I've known about for a while. I remember hearing about it before it came out. These were super cheap. Like, you can probably find these at your local GameStops. They always have some in stock, and they try to get rid of them for about $1. He paid 97 cents for each of these. But this one's Punch Club, and I've known about Punch Club for a while. It's not at all what I expected. I knew it was about joining a boxing league and getting better, and I knew it was an RPG of sorts where you would upgrade your skills. What I didn't expect is that it's actually like a full-blown tycoon game, where you balance your work life, and there's no like strict gameplay per se. It's all simulated, and you pick the moves that your fighter can use, and then you send him into fights, and it's all a simulated, not too dissimilar from like the Chow Garden and the Chow competitions in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. But yeah, it was very interesting. It's super casual. It's not casual as in easy, but you could throw it on and just waste hours on it because of how easy it is to play, and you just kind of sit down and lose yourself in it. I was very impressed with it, actually. I would much rather have it like this than just be another generic brawler that doesn't really have any claim to fame, you know?
Yep.
This one is Awesomenauts, which is awesome. I very, very much like Awesomenauts. I've been playing Awesomenauts since about the time it came out. Very long. I don't remember when that was. It was a while ago.
I want to say, probably like 2012.
My guess was 12, yeah. So it's been a while. This one's sealed still. Again, it was $1. But notable things about Awesomenauts is, well, it's a MOBA. At the time it came out, it was the only side-scrolling MOBA, I believe, ever made. And it was a hell of a lot of fun when it first came out. And there's some balancing issues. It recently went free to play, so you don't necessarily need this. But this does...
It's nice to have, though.
It's very nice to have, especially if you were such a big fan. But it has awesome art style, very good humor in the game, and one of the most notable things is that Awesomenauts has a fantastic soundtrack, which this comes with the soundtrack on disc up to the point that this was released. But it also has the Steam code for the Awesomenauts soundtrack, which is updated whenever there's a new update. So it has all the music in digital form. The physical disc only has so much of the music, but by this point there was a good heap. There's a couple of DLC characters on here that weren't in the base game, so this is not the earliest release, but it's definitely not up to date. They're still updating it now, and it's free to play. But excellent game, at least it was. There's a lot of controversy around it, and every time we play it, Demi and I played a lot. We used to. Everyone's super toxic, but that kind of comes with the territory. But I did play a lot of Awesomenauts. I was ranked 2000 before. Not to brag, I'm not very good.
Sweet.
I actually have a good transition off of that, though, because I didn't find out until much after. This Awesomenauts is made by a small studio. I believe they're, I want to say Scandinavian, something like that. A small studio called Ranmo Games. And I also picked up d.i.y, which I had when I was a kid, which is how Michael knows about d.i.y, I believe. I think he played it at my house. And d.i.y is also made by, maybe not d.i.y 1. I don't see Ranmo anywhere on here. Maybe it was d.i.y 2 that was made by Ranmo Studios. But I know they've definitely worked on one of the d.i.y games. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. Not a lot to say about d.i.y.
It's, you paint buildings, like everything's in black and white. And you just go around like painting stuff, making everything more colorful.
Yeah.
So like everything looks depressing, then you come through and you're like, forget that.
Yep. You paint stuff, and it's been compared to Splatoon in the past. I don't know how strictly similar they are, but the idea of painting the environments is the same to some extent.
I mean, when Splatoon was first announced, I kind of thought a little bit like, hey, that's kind of like the Blob.
Mm-hmm. If they could have definitely...
But I mean, once we found out more about Splatoon, we're like, no, it's not.
The Blob actually plays a lot more like that one game mode in Battle Block Theater.
Oh, the one where you just like paint the blocks for color.
Yeah,
the lamest mode. But don't be deceived.
It is.
The Blob is really good.
Yeah, the Blob is
I like the Blob.
Good soundtrack. You can pick. Was it at the beginning? You pick your mood whenever you start a level, and it changes. The soundtrack. It's none of the songs are static. They're all dynamic songs where you create the music as you're creating stuff. It's just super heavily stylized. It's an experience. It's kind of just something you have to experience for yourself to understand what the Blob has going for it. So yeah. It's a fun time. I haven't played it since I was a kid.
It's a very light-hearted game.
Oh yeah. Well, except for that cutscene, it was super dark when they like executed that guy.
Yeah.
They were doing testing on me. It was rough. Anyway.
So next up, I picked up this game, even though you'll see the case in a moment. It's extremely shitty looking.
It's not good.
But a couple of years ago, I watched the Evil Dead for the first time, and the second, and what was it, Army of Darkness after, and I loved it. So of course, I saw the Evil Dead game here on the Xbox, and I was like, of course I want to play that. And surprisingly, this is really good. It's kind of like hack and slash. You kind of just like beat up a bunch of zombies on the screen. Like the first level, you're like in the cabin from like 2, and you're just beating up some zombies, and it does that scene where like all the inanimate objects are just laughing at him. You gotta like shoot them with your boomstick, and then then after that you proceed to fight some more zombies. Then on the next level's in the hospital. You're just beating up a lot of zombies. It's really fun, just like dumb fun, just turn your brain off kind of thing.
These were 2 that I had been looking for. The first one not necessarily pursuing as much, but again, Demi and I feel like I bring up Demi a lot. It's just Demi's who I play most with games. But Demi and I had recently been playing Umbrella Chronicles, and we were just kind of in the mood for light gun shooters. As you can see, I just bought Light Guns, bought Time Crisis, and it's just kind of been what's on. It's what's been going on right now, other than brawlers. And I picked up Dead Space Extraction, which is a prequel to. It's a light gun shooter for Dead Space, but it's a prequel to the original Dead Space, and it's about I believe it's how just the whole. I don't want to say epidemic or anything. It's how the whole event started. Specifically on the area. I don't know if it's. I don't know how much play. I don't know anything about Dead Space lore. I haven't played the other games, to be completely honest. The game itself is fun. It has interesting stuff to it. It's a little bit on the easy side, at least so far. We're playing on hard, which is the hardest you can go from the beginning. There's 2 difficulties higher than hard, but they're locked until you beat the game. And it's a little bit on the easy side, to be honest, and it also is very slow-paced. It's very much not an arcade light gun shooter, which is a weird thing to say, because light gun shooter pretty much implies arcade games. Most light gun shooters, wherever Time Crisis ended up, are just direct ports from arcade games. But it's a narrative-focused light gun shooter, which sounds weird, and admittedly is weird, but it's a good time. I wouldn't say it's super scary, but it's fun. And the dismemberment mechanic from the Dead Space games works really well in a light gun shooter. It translates super well because you need stuff to shoot at. This one I have been actively pursuing a lot more, and I was very excited to see it. I found it in a GameStop, which was not what I expected. Yeah, I mean, not that you can't find Wii games in GameStops, but I don't know. I've looked at actual game stores for a while, and I haven't been able to find this game. And then finally, I found it. Not that it's super rare or anything, but this is Punch-Out, the reboot for the Wii. I grew up playing Punch-Out. It's like the single-player fighting game that you always wanted. But it's that I just played the port. I played through the whole first cup today. I didn't get knocked down once. Oh, I got knocked down once, yeah. So I've been playing Punch-Out. I played a lot of Super Punch-Out. Played Punch-Out growing up. The first one on the NES. I never played the arcade port. But I just love Punch-Out. And this is very faithful control-wise. It plays exactly the same as Punch-Out. It has some quality of life changes, like making stars more obvious. But it is very focused on the character of Punch-Out, which is part of what really sets it apart from other games. It's just Punch-Out has a whole lot of character, and it also has a whole lot of characters. But each character gets their own intros, and they have new voice lines, and there's just... I have no complaints about this game. From what I've played, which I played it a long time ago, and no complaints. And Donkey Kong's in this one. You can fight against Donkey Kong. So yeah, fantastic game.
Is he like a boss of some sort?
He's like a secret boss, yeah. He's the final. He's the hardest fight in the game. But yeah.
That's really cool.
I very much love Punch-Out. Fun fact about Punch-Out, actually, they were going to have more Mario characters appear, but for some reason their selected choice was Donkey Kong, makes a lot of sense, and Princess Peach.
Why?
But they removed Princess Peach because they were uncomfortable showing such graphic depictions of violence against women. Which, you know, I think it's probably a good thing they took her out. I'm all for equality,
but probably number 2, I would have said Bowser.
Bowser would have been interesting, yeah. But
I mean, it makes sense.
One of the big things for, which it's kind of been a Punch-Out tradition, but for the first time it really shows up in the actual fights themselves, is battle damage. There's a lot of battle damage stuff that appears in Punch-Out. Like when you're fighting King Hippo, he gets bruises all around his stomach from where you've been punching him in the stomach, and people get like not bloody nose, but they get bruises and like they swell up and stuff. And it would be really uncomfortable depicting Princess Peach with like all kinds of bruises and welts she got from you punching her in the face.
Yoshi's real good at getting punched.
Is he?
Yeah, you don't know about the thing in
in the back
Super
of the
Mario
neck. Yeah.
World. I'll just go next. I got the first Ratchet & Clank and Ratchet & Clank 2 going commando.
Fantastic
and so
games.
now I have all 3, so I can, just blaze through them all. I really like Ratchet & Clank because like these are the games Insomniac made like right after the original Spyros, and I love those games. And like these games, they're not Spyro clearly, but they have like a very Spyro feel to them because they're made by the same people. You're still like in collecting stuff, like you're not collecting gems like Spyro, you're collecting bolts, and I mean it's a shooter. And I compared this in a video to Metal Arms, because like this and Metal Arms kind of play similarly. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Ratchet & Clank is about.
Have you how much of the first one have you played?
Not much.
Because the big complaint with the first one is that it's very hard. Just because in the later games you get a health bar, but in the first game you get like health pips, and you get a maximum of 4, I believe. You might be able to upgrade it to 5. And I think it's 3 you upgrade to 4, something like that. And just tiny stuff does a quarter of your health, and it's kind of annoying. But
yeah, I did notice that. I think it's like you get 4 of them.
Yeah, I think it's 4. But I very much enjoy Ratchet & Clank. I grew up, a mutual friend of ours introduced me to Ratchet & Clank, and that was back in like middle school or elementary school. Yep. And they're just a great time. They're very charming in their own way. They're crude in the kind of ways that only mascots can be. They're
rated teen.
All of the titles of the games are innuendos, other than Ratchet & Clank.
Well, other than the first one, I mean, second one's called Going Commando. I mean, I don't need to spell it out for you.
I think the third one is Up
the
Your
back
Arse.
of it says kicking ass one planet at a time, but it's like the @ sign and $2 signs. And then what's the third one called? Up Your Arsenal.
Up Your Arsenal. And then there's Size Matters.
Size Matters.
There was another one. But then they had to drop it I think they got in trouble. They tried too hard. They went too far. They pushed the envelope, and you just can't do it anymore. So then you got like Future Tools of Destruction, A Crack in Time. was supposed to originally be a lot more icky. Like, it was supposed to be a lot darker, and it got rejected because of how bad it was. But yeah, they're an excellent time. They're exactly what you want when you're in middle school. They're edgy, but they're still very charming, and they are in good taste. They are very much not in bad taste at all. So it's, it's exactly what I wanted when I was in middle school. I feel like it can go on, and they play super well. No complaints. These two are, well, the first one right off the bat is Perfect Dark Zero. I played the first Perfect Dark briefly. I very much enjoyed my time with it though. Michael and I played it co-op for a while, and I played it single player, and it was a good time. And this is the sequel that was released. I don't know if we never figured out whether or not it was a 360 launch title, but it's definitely early 360.
It's like 2005.
First-person shooter. This is the Steelbook Special Edition.
Surprisingly, the Steelbook is extremely easy to find.
Very common. It's super heavy. It's one of the really nice ones that has like the plastic insert and all that. And it's a nice Steelbook. It's got, is this a soundtrack? What is this? Bonus DVD. Limited Collector's Edition bonus DVD. But also, something that when I bought it recently, like 2 weeks,
I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And I have one too.
There are these foil cards. They just say Perfect Dark Zero on this side. And on this side, they have, mine says 8 out of 9 because there are 9 of these total. And there's like writing on it, which you can't even see with your human eye. There's no way I'm going to get it to show up on camera. But, and there's an image. Like, I don't know what to call it. Oh, well, you actually can see that pretty well. I have no idea what this is for. I haven't looked into it at all. But Michael didn't even know about this. And he went and opened up his Steelbook and he has, was it 7 out of 8?
Yeah.
And, or was it 1? It was something. But he also has one of these, so we have no idea what they are. Apparently there were 9 to collect. That's neat. But yeah, so this, on all accounts, is a high quality Steelbook. I haven't played much of the game. I played very briefly. I think I played the first level for recording purposes. But yeah,
it's interesting. It's like the regular. It's like the first Perfect Dark, but there's like a cover system and you can do like diets and stuff.
This next game is one that I've been trying to do this more. It hasn't really been working out super well for me in the past, which it kind of doesn't work out as well when you know as much about games. It works better when you're a kid, you don't know anything about games. But I've been trying to branch out a little bit and buy games that I know nothing about.
Like I did with Rat Attack.
Yeah, like that. Just something that kind of piques your interest, and I mean it's exactly the opposite of what they tell you. You know, they say don't judge a book by the cover, but there's something charming about buying a game based on its box art. You know,
sometimes you find something great.
Sometimes I've yet to.
I mean, I didn't know what Super Bubble Pop was.
That's
and
fair.
I thought
That's
that,
fair.
I love that.
That had a robot on the cover.
And I mean,
it's kind of hard to go wrong.
I kind of knew what WarioWare was, but when I bought the one on the GameCube, we both played it together. I was like, this is fantastic.
It's a very good time. But this is El Shaddai, I believe, is how you would pronounce it.
Yep.
It looks like Cell Shaddai. It's not. It's El Shaddai. And you can't make it out super well, but it has interesting art. It's not super detailed art, but it's, I don't know, the use of color is really good on it, and I just liked it. It looks almost watercolory in certain spots, and it just looked super interesting. It kind of plays like, it's kind of like a half-breed between, I guess the closest, it plays somewhat like Darksiders. So I wouldn't call it quite like a spectacle fighter. From what I've played, it's not super fluid or anything, but it definitely seems like if it has a decent story, it could hold itself. Like, I could play through this game if I was interested in the story, which it's very high, has to deal with like demons and gods and fallen angels and stuff, so it's...
I think it said something about dreams and stuff.
It's out there, it's weird. I don't think I'll ever be able to follow what's actually going on in the story. But the gameplay is definitely, from my minimal experience, it seemed passable. It wasn't remarkable from what I've played, but it didn't feel like it hindered the game necessarily. So yeah, I have no idea about this game. It just looks cool.
So this is a game I bought recently. You may already know that I had this because I did a Let's Play on one of the games, but it's the orange box. I had this, and for some stupid reason I sold it at one point. But I mean, this is a really great compilation of games. I mean, you may have seen that I did a Portal speedrun Let's Play kind of thing, and you know, that's really fun. You could watch that if you haven't already. But you know, there's Portal in there, that's really great, and then there's also Half-Life 2, which is a really fantastic game. Then there's Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and Episode, 2. And I don't know how long those are to combine, but there's a lot of like gameplay hours between like all the Half-Lives on there. And I mean, there's also Team Fortress 2, and I mean, it's not as great as the computer version, but it's there.
I actually think the Team Fortress 2 on the Xbox, I think it's still up on the PlayStation, but on the Xbox I think they shut it down.
Well, regardless, I mean, if you're going to play Team Fortress 2, you probably don't want to play it on this. You probably want to go PC. But I mean, it's on there. I remember I used to experiment around before I had like an internet connection on Team Fortress 2.
Oh yeah.
Just like run around with the characters, because you could do like go on LAN party mode and just play by yourself and be real sad.
Yeah, this is a game that my and I both had growing up, and this was personally the first Valve game I owned, and I've been a Valve fan for the rest of my life. I own like all of their games, and I've played through all of their games. I'm currently trying to get Michael to play through Half-Life 1, because he's played through Episode 1 and Episode 2, and the original Half-Life 2.
Yep.
But I think the general consensus is that Half-Life 1 is about 15 hours on your first playthrough. I don't know about Episode 1, I want to say it's about 5 hours, but then Half-Life 2 Episode 2 is about another 10 to 15 hours. So you're looking at like 30 to 35 hours on just Half-Life. So yeah. And it's consistently good throughout. Episode 1 kind of drags, but it's short, so no complaints. My final thing, is it the final? No, it's not the final thing. My final thing here is just completing the collection. Last time I was on, I talked about how I got my Genesis, and I got some of the essentials, including Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, and now I have Sonic 3. I've been wanting Sonic 3 for a while. By far the most expensive of the main 3 Final Sonic games. Not super expensive because they're all pretty cheap, but yeah, it is the most expensive of the 3 Sonic games, so it just took me the longest to actually pick up, especially since I've just been playing through the first 2 and there wasn't a necessity to own the 3rd one yet. But yeah, now I just need Sonic and Knuckles, I think, to get like all the main series from the Genesis.
Well, way to go out with a banger here. I picked this game up because it kind of reminded me of Overcooked, which is a fantastic game. It's not really exactly like that, but it's this cooking game for the Wii called Order Up, and basically you're just making like food and stuff, and it's like, there's motion controls and all that, and it just looks really cool. It plays like, I didn't play like very much of it, but like from what I understand, it just seems like you're trying to like run a kitchen, you can do multiple things at once, and then of course with that you can mess things up horribly. And I don't expect it to be as good as Overcooked, but I feel like this is gonna turn out to be a really good game, because I think at a certain point you have to like manage your own restaurant. Yeah.
Quite the interesting cast of characters under that. I don't know if those are like unlockable characters or if they're like boss battles or something.
I don't know what it is about this game. Something about the art style reminds me of something. Apparently it comes with a chef hat, which I don't think is in here. Just now noticed that on
maybe one time includes chef hat, yeah. Burger face.
Yeah, burger face. But yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.